Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Bat Cave. Yeah, well, at least I do own a real bat cave, so if anybody could be Batman, it could be me. And you never see us in the same place at the same time, so there you go. I've got 3 short videos for you today. One of them is about a consumer ripoff that really somebody ought to be in jail over. I mean, in my opinion, it's an outright lie. It's just an absolute 100% lie. If you want to know how I feel about it, just ask me. But first, let's go back to the mini excavator, and I'll show you what I've had to do to it since, and probably have to fill you in a little bit on some more after I show you this little short video. Well, my saga for this morning, I've done quite a few things in the shop. The one thing I did yesterday was I got this panel off. I dried all this up where the oil was. And I first thought this hose was the one that was leaking because it was soaked. But then, generally speaking, oil falls down, so, gravity works. So I got to thinking, well, it's probably coming from up higher somewhere because I just doubt the hose is bad, So anyway, I started looking. After I dried it off, sure enough, this fitting here is the one that's leaking. I don't know if it's leaking between here and here or between here and here, but it's leaking in this general area right here. I've tightened this down as tight as I can get it for right now. I'm going to wait a couple hours and see if there's any more residue coming out. I don't know. I've got, there's the filter. A better look at the filter now, how it's installed. And again, the hose goes all the way back over here to the cooler. I got this side reinstalled on here. I'll tell you what was really troubling was this bolt here that maybe you can see. There's a bolt in there, and how do you get that nut on that bolt? And the bolt comes in from underneath, but how do you even get the nut on there? You can't even get your finger in there. So I worked out a deal where first of all, I had to cut this off at an angle. This used to come straight across, and there was no room to even get a wrench in there, let alone your finger. So after I cut that off at an angle, I could get a wrench in there, and then I could slide the nut over and just have to feel for it with the bolt. And finally, I got it to thread on and held it there while I tightened it up. That was fun. I also wire tied up the wires that I put in for the fans, going over to the battery with that fuse there. I've decided I'm going to go ahead and put the machine back together. I'm not going to do the cushion valve on that rotator yet because these panels come off easy, and those are the only things that really have to come off to do that later. And I just want to test the machine out and make sure that everything else is good for now before I go messing with that. Besides that, there's things we need to do with the machine, like I need to work on that pond up there where it's leaking. I fixed it once before and it worked for a couple of weeks, but then it started leaking worse. I think I'm going to have to take that tree out up there. But either way, I'm going to have to dig down and pack dirt back in there, and this thing would be handy for that, although I could do it with the Bobcat. But I would just as soon do it with this. So I guess my next step is to put the sheet metal back on this, and then we'll take it outside and put the cab back on it. So that's going to be quite a job. I better get to it. I mentioned I did several projects this morning. Another project here, this won't look like much to you, but it was quite a project. This is my tire breakdown tool from Harbor Freight. Of course, I've modified it many times. I beefed this thing up. I beefed up the deal there that breaks the bead on the tire. And then I made this morning, this giant washer. This edge was flat, but just in the material I had, but it still works. So anyway, I had to cut this hole really big so it would go around this. And then this goes down, sits on top of this, which makes that better for tightening this down. This is what holds your tire. Once you get your tire up on here, this goes down, and holds the tire in place. And it just wasn't stable because I needed that heavy washer. That heavy washer will definitely make it stable and strong now.
So anyway, that just took, 30 minutes or so to make that washer. That's just one more thing I did.
Yeah, that's one more thing I did. And you'll see in a minute here, I had to work on that tire that I worked on yesterday. And there's a whole lot more to that story here in a moment. But regarding the mini excavator, I took that joint apart that was leaking. I first rigged up a vacuum system on the whole hydraulic system. I have an old small shop vac. It's a real small one and it's old. I don't hardly ever use it for anything. So I thought, well, that'll be perfect for this. So I hooked the vacuum down to the filler port. I hooked it up to the filler port on the hydraulic oil tank, and I, sucked the vacuum on that while I took those fittings loose. And I only dropped a couple of drops of oil out. I was really surprised because this particular fitting sits right below the level of the tank, and it's basically attached to the tank, and it would have just been ugly. It would have just been pouring out of there. And sure enough, it worked. I was surprised. It actually worked really well. And anyway, I got that. I took that whole joint apart. I tightened it up, and it wasn't threaded in all the way. So I threaded it in all the way, and then tightened the joint down, and hooked it back up. And I'm going to go back down there after the vlog and see if it's still leaking. I hope it's not still leaking. If it's not leaking, well, then I'll have the excavator back together yet today, and then get up there and start working on the pond, which you'll see here in a minute too, what the problems are with the pond. There's several, actually. But right now, let's go ahead and go to the ripoff, which is part of the tire saga. It is a huge ripoff.
My friends, I'm going to tell you about another ripoff in America that just shouldn't happen, and people really ought to be going to jail over it. I mean, it's that bad. See this 10 PR, 10 ply rating? This is on that trailer tire that I patched yesterday. The patch was right here where I put the plug in. This is the first tire in all the years I've repaired tires that the plug started working its way back out the hole. And I'm thinking, how can it even do that? There's no way that it would have enough pressure on that plug to push it out that hole. It just doesn't make sense. I took it all apart. I took this tire off of this rim, located that spot there, decided I was going to put a boot on the inside to try to make it work better. And just using light sanding, I sanded through the first layer just instantly to kind of like a white looking layer. And I couldn't believe it, how fast that happened. Turns out these are just 2-ply tires. That's all they are. It says 10-ply rating. They're ripping you off here with the 10-ply rating. And when you go over here and look at it, it says tread, 2 steel, sidewall, 2 polyester. Now, it does say the tread has a 2 polyester also, but basically you're just talking at best a 4-ply tire, and at worst it's a 2-ply tire. It's 2-ply on the sidewall for sure, and I know that for a fact because I took it apart and looked at it. It's only a 2-ply tire masquerading as a 10-ply tire. Really, somebody ought to go to jail over that stuff. It's a safety hazard. I've always wondered why these tires, and I'm not talking this specific set of tires, I'm talking trailer tires in general, why they've always gone bad. Well, I've never understood it, but I looked into it now with the 10-ply rating. 10-ply rating just means that it's supposedly able to be equal to a 10-ply tire. Well, it's not equal to a 10-ply tire at all. Especially when you're hauling around a 12,000-pound, trailer with a bobcat on it, a skid steer. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Somebody should go to jail over this. I mean, seriously, it's a ripoff. And it's a safety hazard on top of that.
It is definitely a safety hazard. So let me just give you a good word of warning and a good word of caution. Those are your average heavy-duty, quote-unquote, trailer tires. Those are on my big gooseneck trailer that pulls heavy equipment. It's that big flatbed, 26-foot long gooseneck flatbed trailer. You see them going down the highway all the time. And you're riding right next to it. Yeah. If I was you, I'd keep your distance, because those tires are crap. I've always wondered why trailer tires are such crap. I mean, you just look at them wrong and they go flat, or you look at them wrong and they got a crack in them, or they're busted or something. It's a ripoff, man. I'm going to see if there's any chance that I can, get regular heavy-duty truck tires and put them on that trailer. It's ridiculous. I bought that trailer from a reputable trailer dealer in this area. He's a very large trailer dealer. And so when I was looking at it, I asked the salesman, I said, what kind of tires are these? Are these heavy enough? And he goes, yeah, they're 10-ply tires. They're not 10-ply at all. They're not even close to 10-ply. And it says on there, T10PR, which means 10-ply rated. Rated. That's what it means. Rated. I rate you very highly. That's really all that amounts to. It's just somebody's word that says this is rated high. That's all it is. It is I hate that so bad. I wish I was somebody that could do something about that in the government. Oh, man. There'd be lawsuits going left and right, because that is just wrong. It is absolutely 100% wrong. Now, you want to know how I really feel about it? If I told you that, we'd have to assign an X rating to the video, and then we'd be taken off of YouTube. Okay, well, there is yet another problem to discuss this morning, and here it is. Well, my friends, things have taken a turn for the worse here at the pond in a couple of different ways. Can you see all of this weed that's in the pond? It's called horned pond weed. It's a very thick. There's way more there than you think. When you start raking this in, it makes a huge pile in no time at all. It's absolutely incredible how thick it is and how much there is. We've called the conservation today, and they've told us what to do. We have to rake as much of it out as we can. We have a rake like this to do that, but it's really hard to do, and you can't reach out very far with this rake, so I'm going to try to extend the handle on that rake. I'm also going to try to get the mini excavator up here where I can rake it in with that. That might help. Here's another problem with the old pond. Bummer. The water is leaking out from under this tree again, and you can see it's just running down the hill, and this tree root has gone through the dam. I dug it up in this area here and fixed the one leak, and that held for a couple of weeks, but then it's worked its way through again. I have a feeling this old tree here is not long for the world, because we can't have it leaking like that. I like the shade tree, but on the other hand, it's a little close to the pond. This one here is the same way, but fortunately it's not leaking on this one yet. I don't know. I'm debating on it. Since we're up here, we might as well have the obligatory water wheel view. You can see here that our retaining wall is complete. There are plants growing, mulch in there. Sue's got her fancy rock that she spent tons of money on that is getting covered up in weeds. What a shame. I don't know. We'll have to do something about that. I still haven't finished the roof. I'm still making slow progress toward that, but haven't got there yet. You can see that it's still working very, very well. I have not yet put the new bearing on that yet. I should get that done hopefully in the next month or so also. But there's the roof, and still got my scaffolding there, and it's just waiting to be completed. And if I was 3 people, it already would be done.
But since I'm only one person with all the things that are going wrong around here, it just takes time. I see a bigger leak underneath there than normal. It's dripping pretty fast there. I'll have to get that fixed also. Well, there you go. That's the current status.
I don't have anything to do. I'm so bored. It's pathetic how bored I am. It's unbelievable. There's just no way you could imagine how many things. And I'm only showing you the stuff I'm showing you. You ought to see all the rest of the stuff. Oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. Eddie Turner was the first one in today, and or at least according to, the comments that lasted this time. Apparently half of them got ripped off yesterday. But Eddie Turner was at the top of my list, and then it says Brian Byler, and then Bill Rhodes says good afternoon, and then I'm really now looking just for the question marks. David Tharp says howdy everybody. My 3 favorite things is eating my guitars and not using commas. Eating my guitars. Let's see. Dottie's praying for us, and thank you, Dottie. And the people in Texas, oh boy, they went through it, didn't they? With that flood, golly, that was horrible, just horrible. And all those poor kids that got washed away from the campgrounds and stuff, it's just terrible. Rod Wentler, hi Jerry and Vlogsters, and then he says, from your topic description, I assume we all have a Rosa rant in store. No. Why would you even think so? Bill Webb, good afternoon, Jerry and friends. Can you talk about how you used to charge for the work you did when working on musical instruments? I feel like I'm lowballing my work, but I'm not sure. Well, Bill, I tell you, this is going to probably sound, I don't know, like a stretch in a way, or maybe it's more money than you want to spend, but it's money well spent, I'll tell you that. Get a good time clock, and seriously, and then just stick to your hourly wage. Pick an hourly wage, and maybe starting out, you may have to be lower until you get your clientele built up. Maybe I'm just making this up. You can pick any wage you want, but say you decide on $25 an hour, and then have a time clock, and it's really handy. I mean, it really improves the quality of the whole process. You have a time card then that's associated to that specific instrument. And so every time you pick up that instrument, you pick up the time card, you run it into the time clock, and it'll tell you how many minutes and then you run it again as soon as you're done with the instrument. And it takes you a little while to get used to that that you don't forget. But that's the problem with working on instruments. Often you're doing it in so many piecemeal parts. It might be 24 times you pick up that instrument and work on it over a 3-day period, And how many hours did you spend on it? Well, you don't really know. You don't really know. You're just guessing. Well, I think I spent about 2 hours on it. You don't know. And a lot of times you'll underestimate what you spent, and you really spent 4 to 6 hours on this thing when you thought you only spent 2. So get yourself a good time clock with a bunch of cards, and the cards are fairly cheap, and associate one time card to each instrument that comes in. And then also you can attach your time card to your copy of your invoice. And that way, if any questions pop up, you can show them right there on your time card. Well, this is how much time I spent on it. I'm sorry, And it just works that way. Now, it doesn't mean you have to stick to it. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I just spent an inordinate amount of time on something. Sometimes it's because I just felt like I should, or maybe it was more than the customer really asked for, but I felt like I needed to go that far or something. And I didn't always charge them for all of that time, but at least I knew what the score was. You know what I'm saying? And I could make the choice then. But yeah, I'm seriously telling you, if you do work, and it doesn't have to be instruments, if you do work for people and you don't know for sure that you're really, charging what you should be charging, get yourself a time card like that. And if you're working by the time, it changed my whole life. It really did. And it was all for the better. And I think the customer, it was fair to the customer that way. It was really fair. Anyway, there you go. David Tharp, I've come to the conclusion that the earth is flat. I know because 70% of the earth's surface is covered by water and it's not carbonated. Ooh. You are messed up, David. Let's see. Dottie Hillebrand says, could you play River of Jordan tonight? Is tonight Thursday already? It is. Gee whiz, I seriously, I'm not making it up. I really thought today was Wednesday. I wasn't even thinking about it. Okay. I'll do that. Help is on the way. River Jordan, help is on the way. Man, I'm glad you reminded me. Okie doke. Whatever Dottie says, Dottie gets. Let's see. Moving on down. Bill Webb says, and just to let you know, my jigs worked for clamping the binding on the Martin. I didn't have to cut the binding. I just used canopy glue, clamped it tight. Well, that does work. I got to tell you, though, it may or may not be a permanent fix. I mean, it'll probably work for sure for a while, and it might be permanent. But it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't, that kind of binding like that, it just, if it draws up the first time, it could draw up the second time, is all I guess I'm saying. Let's see. Moving on down. Dottie says, hit the like button, folks. It costs nothing, but sure helps Jerry. And that is the truth. It really does more than you think it does. And I would appreciate it. And not just me, but if you're watching other people's videos and you like them, click like. It makes a difference. It really does make a difference. David Tharp, you can wrap all kinds of food with delicious bacon to make it better. Bacon is the duct tape of food. Now that, I got to tell you, you're genius right there, David. You're genius. Let's see. Moving on down. After we went live, David says, knife. The K is silent. Gnaw. The G is silent. Honest. The H is silent. Mom's mad. The entire house is silent. Yeah, there's some truth to that. Bill Mumbo, Jerry JR's just posted a new video. I think he's trying to steal your viewers. Well, I don't think I've seen it, so I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me. Sidecar Bob, hooray, our heat warning is finally over. Now, if it would only rain. I think we're on the edge of rain out there today. It's kind of overcast. Cup of Cool says, the way you sugarcoat stuff, it's hard for me to figure out your point is. Just once say what you mean. Okay. Okay, get ready. You really don't mean that, do you? Because if you did, you'd have to get the kids out of the house or out of the room where you're watching TV. Oh my gosh. I'm seriously telling you, on stuff like that, there's no excuse for that kind of stuff. Why can't they just be honest and say, these are 4-ply tires or whatever, and we think they're a little stronger, but they just should say it that way instead of, these are 10-ply tires. Kiss my, where. Let's see. Sidecar Bob, dies that mean you'll be running for office? DIES. That mean you'll be running for office. Okay. Let's see. I guess you're talking about me trying to fix this ripoff problem. Well, I tell you, I wish I had some way to get to the people that would matter, because it's not right. There's a bunch of stuff like that. I know most people don't care. They just don't care. But to me, I do care, because it's an outright black and white 100% lie. It's not an accidental, we didn't know, well, if we had known, we would have. No, it's black and white lie. That's what it is. They're ripping you off, saying it's a 10-ply rated tire when it's a 2-ply tire. 2-ply tires are nothing. They're nothing, especially on a big, heavy trailer like that. Just remember that as you're pulling alongside those trailers out on the highway, especially when they got big, heavy loads on them. Now, those really heavy trailers, they're probably heavier tires, but your average trailer like that, not so much. Tom Armstrong, hi Jerry, trying to figure out a way to cut 2-inch PVC pipe in half lengthwise for a project. Any ideas? Thanks. The pipe is a foot long. The pipe is 8 feet long. Well, I got a couple of tips and tricks, but I don't know if you'll like any of them. One thing, this is just a general trick or general tip for anybody. It doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing to do in this specific instance, but anytime you got something, you're trying to find the center of it, like maybe a 6-foot long board, just do like this. You put your hands out underneath it and pull your hands together, and it'll pretty much center right where your hands are. So you can find the center of it pretty quick that way. It's not perfect. I mean, it's not within a 1/16 of an inch, but it's pretty close. So there's one way you can do it. Anytime you got something long, you just put it out there, bring your hands together like that and kind of keep it balanced. And as you get your hands touching, then it's balanced right there. So there's the center of your item. And as far as cutting PVC pipe, well, I mean, I cut it with just about any kind of a power tool these days. I mean, a PVC pipe, you can cut it with a circular saw. You can cut it with a reciprocating saw, which a sawzall is what everybody calls it. You can also cut it with those multi-tools, whatever they call them, that does this, that vibrates. You can cut it with any of those. In fact, I use all of those to cut the pipe, whatever's handy at the moment. So that's what I cut them with. You can also do it by hand with a hacksaw, and with a hacksaw works good, or a regular handsaw. A regular handsaw will cut PVC pipe just fine. So anything pretty much cuts PVC pipe. Now, if your pipe's not too big in diameter, they make a real good cutting tool that is just like a scissors almost, and that cuts it really fast and really easy too, and does a pretty good job on top of that. So those are some of the ways I do it. David Tharp, have you clicked the like button yet? We're waiting. Yeah, well, there you go. If you would, I'd appreciate it. Bruce Ducker, Tom Armstrong, do you have a saber saw? Yeah, that's, again, well, a saber saw to me is the little hand jigsaw type thing. People call them jigsaws, but they're saber saws. You can do it with that, too. Pretty much any kind of saw. Well, I also cut it right on my bandsaw. On my bandsaw table, I've even cut it on my table saw. I've even cut it, and I cut it quite often, actually, now that I think about it. One of the most common ones is the cutoff saw, your cross-cut saw, the miter saw. That's what they call it. Everybody calls them something different, but miter saw. Your wood-cutting miter saw. I cut them with that all the time. In fact, that's probably the main thing I use anymore if I'm in the area where I can use that, Let's see. GMP Marisha. Hi, Jerry. You're a man of 1,000 chores. Maybe a good song title to write. Yeah, you get. That's it. Yeah. That's a good possibility. Paul Akers, can you explain your tools process and different types of materials to spray clear coat on an instrument? Well, I always hesitate on finishes. I do not, and I've said this a zillion times, I do not think I'm the expert on finishes at all. I just used HVLP, high volume, low pressure type sprayer, HVLP, I think is what they call it. It's got the cup on top, and mine was a DeVilbiss, DEVILBIS, I think, DeVilbiss. It's one of the better name brand sprayers. But I pretty much always spray it on, is how I do it with one of those sprayers. The pressure, roughly in the 50-pound range, is generally where I was at. I don't know that I could give you a whole lot more information than that, honestly, because I just don't think I'm the expert on that. If I feel like I'm an expert in something, I'll tell you, but... or if I feel like I have a really good process. But in spraying on instruments and stuff, the only other thing I would say about it is if you're using lacquer, which is a good top coat for an instrument, nitrocellulose lacquer. The only thing I would say about that is to be sure to get the Mohawk retarder. You won't get good results on your lacquer unless you have like the imperfect environment, like maybe, and that might be somewhere down on the desert somewhere, like Arizona, where it's really dry or something. If you're in a really, really dry climate, you might not need the Mohawk retarder, but that's the only one that works too. I mean, I've bought that retarder from Stu McDonald. I bought it from several different companies. I would say I tried 4 or 5 different ones, and the only one that works, in my opinion, is the one from Mohawk. And it works first time, every time. It's the best, by far. It's not even a similar experience. It's completely different experience when you use that retarder versus the other one. And you put about, I'm trying to think, you want to do a roughly... You want to have a little bit more lacquer than lacquer thinner, just a little bit more, like maybe, I don't know, say you're using 50% lacquer, and you would probably use about 45% thinner, and then maybe it's going to add up to more than 100, but then add, some more of that retarder. You don't need a whole lot of the retarder, but you need 10% maybe or something of the retarder. And you can adjust that. If after you spray it, it turns white, you'll know you're not using enough retarder. But that Mohawk retarder is the only one to get. And I don't remember the specific Mohawk retarder. I've got videos out somewhere on that show the exact stuff, but I don't remember what it is exactly. That's about all I can tell you. Hope it helps you. Gino Hitch, hi Jerry and friends, still demolishing the wife's bathroom. Hope your kidney stones don't come back. Got new furnace and AC, much quieter and cooler. Looking forward to the music tonight. Well, good. As far as I can tell, the air conditioning on this end of the house is fixed permanently. They put in a whole new A-coil up there on the air handler in the attic, and so far it's still working, which it's the best it's worked this year at least. Another company, a side note, another company is going to be sending me a refrigerant leak tester, and where that'll be handy is like on these dehumidifiers that we have, like that one dehumidifier. I think I showed that I fixed it on either the vlog or I put a video out about it. I can't remember, to be honest. But anyway, I showed that I fixed that one dehumidifier. Well, it seemed like it wasn't working as well after a few days, maybe 4 or 5 days, or maybe it was a week or more actually. Then it seemed like it slowed down on its working ability. So I took it apart again and recharged it yet again, and it's been working the last couple of weeks very well. And so I have a feeling there's a minor leak there. Well, this company decided they were going to send me a leak tester, and I said, sure, that's perfect. So you'll be seeing that before long, me using that leak detector on these dehumidifiers on the refrigerant portion of that. Let's see. Bill Webb says, I see what you mean about the time clock. When working on 2 different guitars and waiting for glue to dry and picking. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, to me, I would get 3 or 4 projects going at once, not to mention all the interruptions you get anyway. And, you just start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. Well, if you have that time card, every time you start, you click it. Every time you stop, you click it. And then you just add up your time at the end, and then you know how much time you spent on it. And it works really well. It will pay for itself. Even though you're going to spend a few $100 on it, it will pay for itself. I promise you. It changed my life on that. Because I only had that the last 3 or 4 years of working on instruments, had the time clock. And it was one of those deals where I went, I should have had this from day one. I should have had that from day one. Bill Rhodes, Jerry, Lee used to have a government that protected us from those kinds of things. Yeah, for sure. I always felt like we were looked after for years, but it's total greed. Every single problem we've got in America, if you get to the bottom of it, you'll find greed is right there. Every problem. I don't care what the problem is. If you start watching, you'll see that at the bottom there, at the very end, it's greed that's caused it. And that's what it is there's companies are just ripping you off. They're for money. The big CEOs, they need their Porsches and they need their helicopters and their big yachts and all that stuff and their golden parachutes. And they got to cut corners to get all that stuff and make more profit, and you're the one where the corner gets cut. And it's all greed. Ronald Todd, Jerry, did you get the pressure relief valve put on the excavator? No, that's the one thing I said I'm not going to put on there right now, the cushion valve. I'm going to hold off on that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I got some work I need to get done with the excavator, and I have a feeling the cushion valve is going to take me several days because it's going to be hard to find the right fittings and stuff on that. But also, I felt like I've already done enough, and I probably ought to test what I've done to make sure all that's working first before I go adding one more thing to the pot. Plus, as I said in the video earlier, the cushion valve is under those 2 easy-to-remove panels. So I can remove those panels anytime. It's not like taking the whole machine apart. Let's see. Moving on down. Yeah, GMP Marine Shop says oscillating saw. Yeah, that's another term for it too. Multi-tool. I don't know. It is an oscillating tool though. They call those multi-tools. That's what David Tharp said. Yeah, glad you told me that, David. Bill Webb, I realize that about the binding on the guitar, but you always say try the simple thing first. And I agree. I agree. I would have tried it too. It's not a problem. It just depends how bad it is. Sometimes I see that it's so bad, there's not any point. I've seen some Martins where they've pulled out a 1/4 inch from the side. Well, if they're pulled out a 1/4 inch, good luck stretching it a 1/4 inch. It's not going to happen. It's not going to stay. You might be able to force it, but it's not going to stay. And most likely you'll break it anyway when you try to force it when it's that far out. Moving on. G&P Old Marine Shop. Jerry, can you play a fiddle song on a jig saw? I don't think so. I have seen people play songs on saws, though. There was a guy up at Griggsville, Illinois, that played his saw pretty well. Let's see. Sidecar Bob, those are all great for cutting pipe to length crosswise, but he needs to cut it lengthwise. Oh, I didn't understand that. Again, me and the reading thing. Well, if you got to cut it lengthwise, I would probably do that on the table saw or bandsaw, either one. The bandsaw would be real good, but if you don't have a table saw and you don't have a bandsaw, well, then I'd say real good luck, because it's going to be difficult to cut something 8 feet long without one of those two things, either a bandsaw or a table saw. And even if you're doing that, you got to be very careful, because when you're dealing with round material on a saw, it likes to spin, and that spinning could make you minus a digit or two. So be very careful. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't read it that he needed to cut it lengthwise. Sorry. David Tharp, is the Mohawk on your products page? If not, where do you get it? It might be on the products I use page. Now that you say that, I bet it is, because that was a very important thing. I bet it's on there. But it'd be toward the bottom probably, because there was a whole lot of stuff added later. Let's see. David Tharp, the greed problem is doubly so in the medical profession. It's all over America. It's on everything. Like, even if you might say, well, it's not related to drug problems. Well, it is. It's definitely is. It's the pushers and the people that are, selling those illegal drugs. It's all greed. They don't care if it kills you. They don't care if it's laced with fentanyl. They don't give a rip about nothing. All they care about is the greed, the money. Every problem in America, every problem. If you can't link it back to greed, you're just not trying. That's all I got to say about it. You're right about that, David. Yeah, about the medical profession. Well, it's certainly there too, for sure. It's certainly there, especially with the drug companies. Oh my gosh. I've told this story briefly before, but I worked for a short time. I was involved with systems in the benefits department with Southwestern Bell, and we worked specifically on all kinds of benefits. I mean, like medical, dental, vision, and prescription drugs, everything. Well, I was in a meeting one day with a couple of the big pharmaceutical companies, and they just black and white said, they absolutely black and white said, they didn't sugarcoat nothing. They said, we'll put out a drug that we know it's going to kill, 100,000 people, and we know we're going to, have $1 million lawsuit on times 100, that kind of thing. But, we're going to make $1 billion off the drug. So that's 10%. They don't give a rip. You think they do. You're not thinking clear. That's all I got news for you. Let's see. G&P Old Marine Shop was thinking some fiddle songs are jigs, just a joke. Yeah, I knew that was just a joke, and the jig tune thing. But I did know a guy that played a saw. He didn't play a jigsaw. You could have done jigs to his saw. Let's see. David Tharp, you can only play fast Irish tunes on the jigsaw. G&P Old Marine Shop, yes, greed goes back to the beginning and ain't going away. Now, it's gotten so bad. It's absolutely horrible. to me, where it started was, I think, in the 80s. When they started giving the golden parachutes and they started letting lawyers, where it really got bad. I mean, it didn't start there. You know what I mean? When it really amplified was, I think it was the 80s. They let lawyers start advertising on television, and and all of the corporate executives were getting the golden parachutes and robbing the funds that were set aside for pensions, the pension funds and things like that. They were robbing all that. That's where it really, and they were allowed to do it. It was legal, Yeah. And from then, it just went in the toilet from that point on. It just got 10 times worse. Every year that passed, it just doubled in the intensity of the greed. And it's gotten so bad now, it's just, you can't even describe it. And that's the one thing I can honestly say I don't have, is the greed thing. I don't have it. I could give a rip about it. I don't care about money. I could care less. I like to be fair. I like to be truthful and honest about it. I like to get what's coming to me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid, but I don't care, Like whenever I would have a complaint, I know Bill Webb, this is just how I did it whenever I got a complaint, and I only got a few complaints in 40 years. I mean, I honestly think I could count them on one hand of the real complaints that I got. And every single time, I just said, here's your money back. See ya. That's how I did it. I just handled it like that. Here's your money back. I'll see you later. I didn't care if I had $600 in it or whatever. I just said, here's all your money back. See you later. And that's how I did it. Because I didn't want to deal with them, for one thing. Let's see, anybody else? It says, GMPO Marine Ship. I've seen saw players. Yep, there are a number of them. Okay, well, I think that's it, guys. I appreciate all your time and being nice to me. If you would click the thumbs up thing, I'd appreciate that as well. 133 viewers still hanging in there. So we will see you tomorrow. Well, no, we'll see you this evening. We'll see you this evening, and I'll have these two tunes for sure, and I already got another one in my mind that I was thinking about, that it's an old Jim Reeves tune that I thought was going through my mind this morning, and I thought, well, I'm going to do that the next show, so we'll do that tonight also. We'll see you then, 7 o'clock this evening. Be there or be square, as they say.